TIFU by contesting a parking ticket. I live in Los Angeles, where parking tickets are as common as Botox in a celebrity's face. My apartment doesn't have on-site parking, so I had to buy a permit to park on my street and surrounding streets. If you park in the area without a permit, you get a parking ticket that's $60. And #XP. Permit is large and hangs from your review mirror, like a handicap permit. I had gotten 2 parking tickets in the past few months even though I had a valid permit. One was because the parking officer thought my permit was expired, which it wasn't, and the other was because I had forgotten to put my permit in my mirror after a day at work. #XP. I had an administrative hearing this morning to contest these 2 parking tickets. It is a nice day, so I decided to walk to the hearing. Plus, I had gotten a good spot in front of my building and didn't want to lose it. I took my permit with me so I could prove it was valid and walked to the hearing. And #XP. The hearing took about a half hour because of all types of paperwork. After the hearing, I decided to treat myself to a coffee for the walk home. The line at the coffee shop was long, but I wasn't in a rush. I finally got my coffee and took a leisurely stroll through the side streets to look at the beautiful blooming canvas. https://.pin.com/b8forward/28forward/b885d805d885d886b b45z09to cd7b96 4b3c.jpg. #XP. I'm about a half a mile from home when it hits me. If I have my permit with me, then that means my car is parked without a permit. I start to run home and look like a mad person sprinting through the streets of LA in my business casual outfit. And #XP. I finally get in my car when I see it. A brand new parking ticket for parking without a permit. #XP. TL. Drive. TIFU by taking my parking permit with me to contest 2 parking tickets and got another parking ticket for parking without a permit while in contesting the original tickets. Food. A friend brought her new date over for dinner. I jokingly vetted him in front of everyone by asking if he'd ever killed anyone. He said yes. Is it so in the case? This didn't happen today, but a few years ago when I was maybe 15, young and naive. My mom's best friend back then was V, a young woman in her late 30s, the widow of a really great man that had died a few years earlier, too young, because of a disease. V is a bright, intelligent, well-mannered and good-looking woman. After losing her husband and mourning his death for a long time, she started dating again. She brought to our home a few men over the years. One of those times, V had invited over for dinner a man, let's call him R, who she introduced to us as our good friend. He was a middle-aged man and originally from Bosnia. He now lived in my hometown and run his construction business. For those of you not fully aware of Bosnia and the things that happened there, brief history lesson. It's a small country in the Balkans, Eastern Europe, north of Greece, and it used to be part of the former Yugoslavia. Long story short, in the 1990s a civil war broke out there, and things got really ugly. Many were murdered, and many fled, including R. That evening, at dinner we were all trying to get to know better. He seemed a nice, soft-spoken man, mature, and with a lot of experience on his shoulders. Start asking him questions about how long he's been out of Bosnia, etc. I start to think of something witty to say to vet him, something funny. I asked him if he'd ever killed someone, jokingly. He looked at me, all serious. He said yes. Everyone became silent. He went on to explaining that during the war he had to make some difficult actions a couple of times. There were those situations where it was either his life and the lives of his beloved ones, or other persons. He wasn't a soldier, but just a regular civilian looking out for himself. I felt horrible for asking this. I thought I was just making a joke. I opened up some really painful memories, things that were not easy for him. Still today, many years later, I can't imagine how he must feel living with such memories. And it was also the first time young me started to realize what war actually is, how it impacts real people around us. After a short moment in which everyone was trying to cope with strong emotions, the dinner slowly went back to normal. He never spoke about that again, minus TL drive. I thought it'd make a funny joke and ask my friend's date at dinner if he'd ever killed anyone. Turns out, he did during the civil war in former Yugoslavia, to save us and his loved ones' lives. The joke became immediately too serious, and thinking about it still makes me uncomfortable to this day. For by holding my best friend's leg as she gave birth. My best friend Heidi had to be induced early on Saturday, and had spent the weekend labouring, and I stayed with her in her hospital room. Early yesterday morning, the doctor attempted to break her water, but not much fluid was present, so the doctor left it. Heidi laboured all day yesterday, and though her original plan was to only have her husband in the room as she pushed, when it came time, she asked me to stay to help her and take pictures. When she was ready to start really pushing, I swapped out with a nurse and held Heidi's left leg for her, took over counting to 10 during each push, and finally, after almost 3 hours, the baby made her appearance. Important thing to note here is that the amniotic sac had not, in fact, been fully ruptured. When baby girl exited, the amniotic sac exploded out at the same time, and its trajectory carried it right into my face and open mouth. I guess I was officially christened by the baby first. TL drive. My best friend's leg as she gave birth, wound up with a face and mouth full of amniotic fluid. P.S. It's incredibly salty. TIFU by swiping on lesbians on Tinder for 2 months. This has been going on for 2 months, and I just found out today. Throw away account because many know my real account, and I don't feel like getting roasted for 3 years about this. So I signed up for Tinder after breaking up with my girlfriend a few months ago. I set up my account, set my interest in women, and started swiping. Now, when I signed up for Tinder, I linked my Facebook account, and apparently my dumbest 13-year-old self thought it would be funny if I set my gender to woman. I'd completely forgot. I'm not a terrible-looking guy and have had success on other apps, but I was getting barely any matches and couldn't figure out why. Figured the algorithms were just screwing me. Over the course of the 2 months, I would think, wow, short hair must be the new thing. Or so many bisexuals on here, but never really thought anything beyond that. Then this morning I woke up to a new match. She said I looked great, to which I replied, thanks, you too. Then she replied with, how long ago did you transition? I thought she was talking about puberty, but she was not. That's when it all came together. I realized I've been swiping on lesbians the entire time. TLER, my 13-year-old self is an asshole. But I am not 13 years old. Facts. I made a Facebook. I am 25. Foo and touched myself in front of my doctor. So recently went to the doctor for a routine checkup. Were worried I had cancer because of a headache. He went through all the usual doctor sheet minus flashlight and eyes, testing my reflexes etc., and then proceeded to get his stethoscope out. As expected, he then told me to hold my breath. I should have known from my experience at the doctor's this would be the next question he would ask. It's now. I should tell you he had a slight accent, for which I thought he asked me to hold my breast. Hearing authority, and thinking nothing of it, I cupped both my breasts proudly. What feels like an eternity passes for him to correct me. No, your breath. It was from here on out. I was lost. I had no feeling. Face red, more than ready to leave. And this all occurred with my dad sitting right next to me. Needless to say, we haven't never talked about it. TLER. Cupped my breasts in front of doctor. Did saw that. Just to clear things up, minus image to F. Completely healthy. And forced me there to confirm I'm irrational. It was a simple checkup, not a full body exam. Turns out the embarrassment cured my worries and damn headache. Cancer free. For by giving my son permission to beat his bully's ass. My son was born with a condition called Bector excavatum. In layman's terms, his chest is sunken in. His condition was so bad that he only had 2.5 inches between his sternum and his spine, and his heart and lungs were bruised because of it. In December, he had surgery to correct it. They put tentacle bars in his chest to give it space and train his bones to grow correctly. About 3 weeks after his surgery, a kid punched him and dislodged the top bar. He had to have another surgery to put the bar back in place. The kid has been through a lot. Well, the doctor cleared him for most activity last week, just no skateboarding or bike riding. But he could now lift his backpack and go hang out with friends and play pickup, non-contact sports. Beknownst to me, a kid in his class has been bullying him all semester. And because my son was afraid of getting hit again, he just took it. Well, the evening he was cleared, he came to me and said, I'm cleared now. A kid has been bullying me and hitting me for months. Can I kick his ass? Well, my son isn't really a fighter. He's fought with his brothers but never anyone else, and he's always gotten his ass kicked. So I just figured he was just talking. This is the first I had heard about the bullying. I was concerned. I could tell he was distressed about the situation. So I told him to knock the fucker out. He just nodded and went to his room. Now, his older brother is stuff sap. He had a traumatic brain injury 2 years ago and he missed a year of school. So he's in the same grade and coincidentally takes the same class. Talked to him about it and told him to handle it but don't get in trouble. He told me that the kid walks in every day and punches my son in the head. I asked him why he allowed it to happen, and he said he wanted his brother to get tough, and once he was tired of getting hit, he would do something about it. While I can agree with his thinking, I instructed him to handle it without getting in trouble. Next morning I took them both to school, and drove back home to get my younger daughter who goes to a different school that starts later. On the way to take her to school, my wife called me. Have taken next XXXX to school yet? Well, after you do, go pick up your son. He got in a fight. I just assumed it was my oldest son. Imagine my surprise when I walked into the school office to see my youngest son with a grin from ear to ear. He was beaming. He pointed to another kid sitting in a chair holding an ice pack on his face. I warned him. I was so proud. He had walked into class, sat down, and the kid popped him in the head like always. My older son got up to intervene and whenever he could. My son decked the kid with one punch. He said the kid was bawling on the floor and that it was the best day of his life. He got suspended for 3 days. Drive. I gave my son permission to beat up his bully because I didn't think he would. And he did it. Edit 1. Kid who punched my son in the chest was one of his friends. It wasn't malicious. Just a boy clowning around. He was horrified that he had hurt my son. The bully punched my son in the head every day. Once he found out my son couldn't do anything about it, he just kept on. My son wasn't the only one he bullied either. So, the bully's brother came to my son later and told him that he had warned him once my son could fight, that he was gonna get his ass kicked. Edit 2. My son has some social anxiety and since the fight he has made a lot of new friends. He used hate gun to school. Now he's disappointed that school is out for summer. Crazy. Edit 3. Thanks for the precious metals. Holy shit. Front page.